Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
Out there, far beyond the tug of earth, far beyond the wind and the water and the breathing forests, there is a silence so deep it bends the rules of sound itself. A silence thick with dust and starlight, and in that endless dark, something ancient flickers softly, a star, nearing the end of its long and luminous life. This star, like so many, was born from chaos. Not chaos with violence or rage, but the soft drifting of things, gas swirling through the folds of a galaxy, pulled slowly inward by invisible hands. For millions of years, clouds of hydrogen gathered, pressing closer and closer until one day pressure gave birth to fire. A star was born, not in a moment of noise, but in a hush that only the cosmos could hear. For billions of years, this star lived with quiet purpose. In its core, a great fusion furnace turned hydrogen into helium, releasing light with every heartbeat. That light traveled across time and space, warming planets, stirring atmospheres, painting skies. Somewhere, perhaps, someone looked up and made a wish. But now the star is changing. Its hydrogen fuel is nearly gone. The fire that once burned so easily now struggles to stay alight. It is beginning to bloat, its outer layers loosening like the petals of an overripe flower. It is becoming a red giant, a swollen, trembling version of its former self. The core inside shrinks tighter, denser, hotter, while the outside grows large and luminous. You can almost picture it, this swollen star pulsing softly in the dark, its surface trembling with age. Inside, helium fuses into carbon and oxygen, but that too is fleeting. The star's center is becoming too dense for fusion to continue. Its heart is growing heavy. Its breath is slowing. Around it, the galaxy continues, unaware. Stars are born in nurseries nearby. Planets spin in distant orbits. But here, in this quiet corner of the sky, this old star is writing its last lines. As the outer layers drift away, carried by soft stellar winds, a shell begins to form, a glowing shroud of gas and dust. This is a planetary nebula, despite its name having little to do with planets. It's the star's final sigh, cast gently into the cosmos. Pale blues, soft reds, and glowing purples hang like silk in the darkness. It is beautiful, this quiet undoing. And then the light begins to fade. What remains is a core, a compact pearl of matter, no longer burning but still glowing with ghost light. This is the beginning of a white dwarf, not dead, not alive, something in between, a cinder that remembers the fire. You can almost feel its weight. A spoonful of its matter would outweigh a mountain. The atoms inside are crushed, pressed into quantum stillness by gravity and pressure. It doesn't shine from fusion anymore. It shines from memory, from heat held tight in its tiny bones. The star has become a whisper, but what a whisper it is. A whisper that lasts for billions more years. A soft, glowing reminder that even after the fire ends, the warmth can linger, the light can stay. And so it rests, suspended in a galaxy filled with motion, a small, dense echo, not gone, not forgotten. Just changed. Now let's drift deeper, into the stillness that remains after a star's voice has quieted, into the long breath between moments, where silence is not absence, but memory stretched out in time. The white dwarf, that dense and glowing ember, is one of the strangest things in the universe. It is what remains when the flames have burned out and the ashes refuse to scatter, a monument to pressure, to heat, to what once was a living, breathing sun. It is easy to think of it as small. It is, after all, only about the size of Earth, but its weight defies imagination. A teaspoon of its substance would crush through steel, collapse through concrete, fall straight through the crust of a planet. The atoms inside are crushed so tightly they no longer act like atoms. Their electrons are pushed into strange, jittering dances, creating something called electron degeneracy pressure. It is this quantum pressure, not heat, not fusion, that keeps the white dwarf from collapsing further. This pressure is silent. It does not roar or crack or groan. It is simply there, like gravity or love, ever present and invisible. If you could drift close to a white dwarf, you would see something that barely moves. It spins slowly. It glows faintly. No fusion flames dance inside it anymore. And yet it radiates warmth, like a stone holding the sun's touch long after sunset. It cools very slowly, so slowly, in fact, that the first white dwarfs ever formed are still glowing today, billions of years later. Over time, the light will dim. Over eons, it will fade from white to orange to red to black, a black dwarf. But this final stage is only a whisper of theory. The universe is not yet old enough for any white dwarf to have cooled that long. In the cosmos, no black dwarf yet exists. They are part of the future, a future so distant it lies beyond the span of all memories. Still, the process has begun. The star's legacy remains inside that cooling ember. The carbon forged deep in its core may one day become something new. Some white dwarfs, as they cool, begin to crystallize. Not just cool, but harden, slowly forming diamond-like cores. Imagine that, a star's heart turning into a jewel in the dark. One of the brightest white dwarfs in the sky, known as BPM 37093, is believed to be doing just that. Scientists sometimes call it Lucy, named after the Beatles' song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It is a poetic truth. Some stars truly do become diamonds in the sky. Even after death, they shine in strange and beautiful ways. And they are not alone. Across the galaxy, white dwarfs scatter like pearls, quiet sentinels of stellar memory. Many once had planets circling them. Some still do, though their suns have shrunk to glowing embers. Imagine a planet orbiting such a quiet sun, basking in a faint, cold light wrapped in shadows and echoes. Sometimes these ancient stars draw companions close. In binary systems, white dwarfs can siphon matter from neighboring stars, creating bursts of brightness. A sudden flare, a nova, sparked by borrowed fuel. These moments do not last, but they add flickers of surprise to the universe's lullaby. Other times, white dwarfs collide, and when two such dense stars fall into each other, the result can be spectacular. A Type Ia supernova, one of the brightest events in the universe. Irony, then, that the most powerful explosions in the cosmos can come from the faintest, quietest stars. But most white dwarfs never explode, most simply fade, slowly, softly, without drama. They become part of the backdrop, part of the deep silence that blankets the sky. There is something deeply comforting in this. Not all endings are loud, not all goodbyes are rushed. Some are long and slow, like a breath held across centuries. Some fade like lullabies, whispered into eternity. And so the white dwarf remains, a star's last breath captured in light, a jewel that formed under gravity's hand, a lesson in what lingers even after the fire is gone. When you look up even on a dark night, the stars you see may be young, but all around them are stars you cannot see. Stars whose stories ended long ago. Their light still travels, their heat still drifts, and their remnants still rest, glowing softly in the ocean of space. The universe remembers every flame, and in the silence it keeps them warm. Now imagine the final stillness of a white dwarf, the cooling quiet that lasts longer than all human memory. It is not gone, it is not burning, it is simply waiting, wrapped in time like a stone beneath the ocean, untouched but not unloved. These are the elders of the galaxy, even if they no longer shine like youth once did. Over the next billions of years, the light will continue to fade, not in haste but in patient surrender. The star, now a pale cinder, glows only from the warmth it remembers. Each atom inside has settled into perfect stillness, no longer moved by fire but by memory. This is the slowest farewell imaginable, a cooling that may never truly end. As it cools, the matter within begins to align. Just as water freezes into ice, the interior of a white dwarf begins to crystallize. But this is no ordinary crystal. It is a lattice of carbon and oxygen pressed into diamond-like structures under impossible weight. What once was plasma becomes solid. What once was heat becomes order, a star becoming a gem. This quiet transformation is not something the universe announces. It happens without thunder or spectacle. Somewhere in the velvet dark, a sun becomes a diamond, and no one hears the sound. If you could stand beside it, not that you could, for the gravity would crush every molecule of you, you might feel the hum of silence, the way stillness can carry weight. The white dwarf would sit there like a heartbeat paused, not broken, not finished, just waiting. In time, far more time than the Earth will ever know, it will cool so much that it will no longer emit light. Its glow will vanish, leaving only a black dwarf, a star in name only, colder than any known thing, silent beyond imagination. A coal without heat, a stone with no flame, floating in the endless dark. But no black dwarf exists yet. The universe is still too young. The stars have not had enough time to reach such an end, so white dwarfs remain as the final known chapter, a pause, not a full stop. And in that pause there is poetry. They are reminders of how long endings can last, how something can be over but still beautiful, still important. They are the punctuation marks in the sentences of galaxies, quiet, tiny, but full of meaning. And if you think about it, they are mirrors too. We, like stars, burn for a time. We shine, we grow, we fade. And something of us, our warmth, our light, lingers. Maybe one day, far in the future, someone else will find a white dwarf in the sky and wonder what star once lived there, what planets danced around it, what oceans sparkled in its glow. They'll look into the dark and see not emptiness but memory, because even the coldest remnants carry the story of fire. The universe is not wasteful. Even a dying star becomes something new. Some stars die with a roar, collapsing into black holes. Others scatter themselves into space, reborn in new stars and planets. But the white dwarf chooses a quieter path. It stays behind. It watches. It waits. Its silence is its message. In a way, the story of a white dwarf is the story of how the universe preserves the past. It doesn't erase its stars. It lets them cool in peace, tucked into the corners of time. And in that cooling, in that slow dimming, there is a strange kind of hope, that even after brilliance fades, something solid remains. So if you ever feel lost beneath the stars, remember this: many of them are not burning anymore. Many of them have already ended their fire, but their light is still arriving. Their warmth is still crossing the distance. Their stories are still being told. And somewhere out there, a white dwarf glows, softly, quietly, holding on to the last breath of a star. Not because it must, but because it can. That is the gift of the cosmos. Nothing beautiful is ever truly gone. It simply becomes something else, something still, something small, something lasting. Long before the silence, before the jewel heart cooled, before the last ember glowed in the dark, there was a time of gathering. A time when gas and gravity spoke softly to one another, shaping something that had not yet existed. This is how a star begins, not with fire, but with stillness. A great cloud, drifting through the spiral arms of a galaxy, stretched thin and wide like ancient breath. Hydrogen floats through space like stardust waiting for memory. These atoms, some as old as the universe itself, gather where gravity whispers. It is not a sudden thing. No moment announces it. But slowly, gently, this loose collection of atoms begins to fall inward. Not fall like a raindrop, but fall like a thought returning home. At first, the gas only compresses slightly, like a slow breath held in a deep chest. The temperature rises not by flames, but by pressure. And still the cloud collapses. It becomes denser, warmer. In the center, a core begins to form, a place where hydrogen feels the weight of its own kind. At some point, no one knows exactly when, the pressure becomes unbearable. Atoms are pressed so tightly that their hearts, protons, start to fuse. Light is born deep in that hidden center. A star opens its eyes. For billions of years, it shines. Its hydrogen becomes helium. Its light reaches out across the dark, painting its surroundings in warmth. It births planets, guides orbits, perhaps even kindles life on distant shores. To those who live beneath it, it seems eternal, but stars are not immortal. Even the brightest must one day dim. As the hydrogen in its core runs low, the balance shifts. The fusion that once held gravity at bay begins to waver. The star in response expands. Its outer layers swell outward, glowing red and vast. It becomes a red giant, reaching with soft arms into the dark. The helium inside begins to fuse, becoming heavier elements, carbon, oxygen, each stage shorter than the last, each breath more shallow. And then there comes a time when even this cannot continue. The star is not large enough to ignite the fusion of carbon. Its core becomes heavy, unmoving. Its outer layers, no longer tethered by fusion's push, begin to drift away, cast off like silk in a breeze. A planetary nebula forms, an illusion of color, a ring of farewell. In the middle, what remains is the core, hot, dense, bright. A white dwarf is born, not in fire, but in surrender. This white dwarf is something strange. It is smaller than Earth, but heavier than entire planets. Its matter is crushed into quantum stillness, held up by a pressure that does not come from heat, but from physics itself, electron degeneracy pressure. The very laws of matter now hold the star aloft. There is no more fusion, no more creation of elements, only the slow, quiet cooling of what remains. The light that shines now is memory, heat escaping over time, radiating out into the galaxy like a sigh. It is easy to think of this as an ending, but it is not a death in the way we know it. It is a transformation, a change of state, a fire becoming coal, a song becoming echo. White dwarfs do not roar or burn, they do not rage or fall, they endure. For billions of years they persist, glowing faintly, whispering the story of their birth into the void. Each one is a monument to time, a fossil of light. When you see a white dwarf through a telescope, what you are seeing is history, compressed, silent, and glowing. A thing that once warmed worlds, now still, yet unchanged in purpose. It gives off its warmth, not in haste, but in patience. This is the beginning of that sure. Nay, from the drifting gas clouds of interstellar space to the dense crystal of a white dwarf's heart, it is a story written in slowness, in gravity, in time, and in light that outlives the fire that forged it. The birth of a white dwarf is not a single moment, but a cascade of transformations, each phase quieter than the last, each step more delicate, and at the center of it all the core, shrinking, heating, compressing, until it becomes something new, something ancient and unborn all at once. Ashes of the sky pressed into silence. Let's drift further now into the quiet heart of a white dwarf's beginning. Not a bang, but a settling. Not a birth cry, but a long, slow exhale. For after the nebula fades and the giant's glow recedes, what remains is not merely a remnant. It is a puzzle of physics wrapped in light, a monument to what stars become when their fuel runs dry. The core that survives is no ordinary object. It defies our everyday sense of matter. It is impossibly dense, compacted by the same gravity that once kindled its fire. Inside, atoms are no longer allowed to behave as they once did. Their electrons, usually so free to move and bond and dance, are now trapped in strange, confined motions. They press against each other with a quiet defiance, creating the pressure that holds up the entire structure, electron degeneracy pressure. This isn't just a scientific term, it is the very breath of the white dwarf's being. You can almost imagine those electrons like people in a crowded room, no two allowed to stand in the same spot, no two allowed to share the same space. That crowding, that packed, breathless stillness is what stops the star from collapsing entirely. It is strange, then, that quantum rules, so small, so quiet, are what keep a dying star alive. And the temperature at its core, even after fusion has stopped, is staggering. Millions of degrees, slowly bleeding into space. It radiates like a coal pulled from a forgotten fire, still hot to the touch even after the flame is gone. That heat will last billions of years. It will take longer than Earth's entire history for a white dwarf to cool to darkness. Somewhere orbiting quietly, there may be planets still tethered to this ember star. Perhaps cold now, their skies dimmed but still circling, still obedient to gravity's invisible pull. Some scientists have even found traces of planetary debris falling onto white dwarfs, metal and dust from shattered worlds. These remnants of solar systems long faded are pulled inward and devoured, layer by layer, like ancient memories returning to their source. Imagine then a solar system dying slowly, a one sun becoming a white dwarf, a place where life may have bloomed now wrapped in stillness. And even in that stillness, things happen. If the white dwarf has a companion, a nearby star, it may begin to pull material from it, quietly stealing matter across the gulf. If enough is taken, the white dwarf can suddenly ignite again, flaring up in a brilliant nova. A brief return to light, not from its own fire, but from the borrowed breath of another. But in most cases, there is no companion, no nova, only the steady fading, the light that lingers for eons, slowly dimming like a distant memory. And still, even without flares or companions, white dwarfs continue to surprise us. Some begin to crystallize over time. Deep inside, the heat and pressure push carbon atoms into alignment, forming crystalline structures. The white dwarf becomes something solid, something ordered, a diamond cooling in the void, a cosmic jewel millions of kilometers wide. One such star lies 50 light-years away from us, silently shining. Astronomers believe its heart is crystallized, a diamond core hidden beneath layers of cooling gas. The idea that a dead star can become a gem is both romantic and real. It's science with poetry built into the structure of atoms. And all the while, the white dwarf holds its shape. It doesn't collapse, it doesn't drift apart. It remains steady and small, like a heartbeat slowed to a whisper. The gravity on its surface is extreme, hundreds of thousands of times stronger than Earth's. If you were to drop a feather from a meter above, it would strike the surface with the force of a falling boulder. But nothing stirs there. No winds, no clouds, only stillness. This quietness is not emptiness. It is peace. The kind of peace only the universe can offer, long, slow, vast, beyond comprehension. The light from a white dwarf still moves outward. It travels across the cosmos, across time, touching galaxies far away. Even in this final state, the star continues to give. Its photons fly like tiny messengers, bearing news of a life well lived, news of a birth in dust, a blaze in fusion, and a death marked not by loss but by endurance. To look at a white dwarf through a telescope is to look into the past, to see what becomes of stars after they finish their fire, to understand that even in the end there is beauty, that what we call an end is often just another shape of presence. So the white dwarf rests, not broken, not gone, simply changed. It carries the memory of its burning days, the gravity of its past, and the light that will take billions of years to dim. In every way it is still a star, only smaller, quieter, more patient. It is easy to think that the star has died, but it has not. It has transformed. It has become something else entirely, a keeper of time, a vault of heat, a poem pressed into the structure of space itself. And through it all, it drifts through the galaxy like a lantern in a cave, soft, eternal, glowing in the dark. Now let us follow the white dwarf further still, not as an object of study, but as something more intimate, a final shape in the life of a star, resting in the cradle of time. The star that once roared with fire is now a whisper among giants, and yet that whisper endures. It holds a kind of truth that only silence can carry. There is something sacred about the slowness of this stage. The white dwarf does not move quickly, nor does it change in haste. Its cooling is not measured in years, but in epochs, in spans of time too vast for our minds to hold. Its light dims so gradually that even a billion years feels like a moment to its stillness. It cools not to disappear, but to become quieter, less visible, but never less real. As the white dwarf fades, so too does its heat. The brightness we once saw from across light years softens like the final glow of coals at the edge of night. The color shifts from white to yellow, to orange, to red, to black. But this blackness is not emptiness. It is a culmination. The white dwarf, now a black dwarf, no longer emits light, no longer speaks in heat. It becomes a shadow, holding the memory of a sun that once shone. No black dwarf yet exists in our universe. The cosmos is simply not old enough. It would take longer than the current age of everything for a white dwarf to cool that far. But someday, billions and billions of years from now, those silent remnants will exist. They will float through space as the final chapter of starlight, cold, dark, but still whole. Even in their stillness, they will have mass, they will have pull. Gravity does not forget. These objects, small as Earth but heavier than entire moons, will continue to shape the orbits of what remains. Perhaps even then, long after galaxies have dimmed and stars have scattered, the black dwarf will hold on to tiny satellites, fragments of worlds that once circled in light. And in that unimaginable future, what might remain of memory? Perhaps nothing, perhaps everything. Perhaps the shape of the black dwarf itself, its density, its silence, its orbit is enough to tell the story. A story not of explosion but of endurance, not of endings but of transformations. The heat may be gone, the light may be gone, but the presence remains. For the white dwarf, though born in fire and baptized in collapse, ends in peace. And peace in the universe is never empty. It is filled with the slow song of gravity and time. It is filled with the soundless echo of what once was and what might still become. Sometimes in the quiet moments of the night, one might look up and wonder what stars are made of. The answer always is time. Stars are made of time, of waiting, of gathering, of burning, of fading, and of remembering. White dwarfs are the pause between heartbeats in the cosmos. They do not rage, but they do not vanish. They are the form a star takes when it refuses to collapse fully and chooses instead to linger. And in their lingering, there is a lesson. We too are made of stars. The carbon in our bones, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, all born in the cores of stars that burned and died long before Earth took shape. Some of those stars became supernovae, scattering their elements wide. Others became white dwarfs, keeping their treasures locked within. We carry their light in our cells, their structure in our atoms. We are the echo of their long goodbye. So when you think of a white dwarf, do not think of an ending. Think of a continuation. Think of a star that has learned how to be still. That has learned how to endure, not by shining brighter, but by holding close the warmth it once gave. And when the last of these stars finally cools, when the black dwarfs drift in silence, scattered through a cold and empty universe, they will still be beautiful, not to the eye, not to the senses, but to the heart of the cosmos itself. They are what remains when all else has passed. They are the ashes of the sky, and even in darkness they are complete. This is the journey of a star, from cloud to flame to cinder, from light to memory to silence, from the radiant to the quiet, and in that quiet there is meaning. Not the meaning we read in brightness, but the kind we find in rest. And so the white dwarf does not end. It becomes something smaller, something slower, something sacred. A breath held forever, a lullaby for the stars that still burn. Somewhere in the velvet dark, far from the noise of planets and the bright clamor of burning suns, there rests a star that has already spoken. Its light once swept across the galaxy, touched distant moons, and whispered through the atmospheres of ancient worlds. But now that light is fading. What remains is not absence, but an echo soft, persistent, and slow as breath. Every star is a voice. When it burns, it sings, not in sound but in light. It pulses with fusion's rhythm, its surface a sea of radiant motion, its core a crucible of elements. And for most of its life, a star speaks clearly, bright and strong. But as its fuel dwindles, its voice becomes low, stretched, like a final note held long into silence. A medium-sized star, like our own sun, will live for billions of years before its fuel thins. When that moment comes, it doesn't fade instantly. Instead, it grows. It swells into a red giant, casting off its outer skin like petals in slow motion. This is not a collapse, but a release. Its mass loosens, layer by layer, flowing outward into space. The light becomes deeper, redder, the center contracts. In that shrinking heart, something remarkable unfolds. As the helium left behind begins to fuse into carbon and oxygen, the core grows hotter. But this fire cannot last forever. Eventually, the core reaches a stage where fusion can no longer continue. The star is not massive enough to forge heavier elements. Its engine stops. And yet the star doesn't fall apart, not entirely. What remains is a white dwarf, a dense, compact core made of carbon and oxygen, no longer alive in the traditional sense, but still glowing from within. It is the ember of a former sun. It holds the temperature of millions of degrees. It shines not because it burns, but because it remembers. The nebula that surrounds it, the soft cloud of discarded stellar skin, glows in the last light of the dying core. It drifts outward for thousands of years, painting the space around it with ghostly blues and purples before finally dispersing into the wider cosmos. But the white dwarf remains. Its mass is compressed into a volume no larger than Earth. Inside, atoms are pushed so tightly together that their electrons rebel, creating a pressure that halts further collapse. It is a balance achieved through quantum law. No fire, no fusion, just pressure, heat, and silence. The silence of a white dwarf is not emptiness. It is not the silence of death. It is the silence after music, the echo that tells you the song once played. It is filled with memory. It is filled with stillness that speaks. In the sky, we may still see the light from these ancient stars. The photons they emit travel for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years before reaching us. We are watching their past, never their present. Their light, though dim, crosses time like a whisper over water. It tells us, I was once bright, I was once a sun. And in that whisper there is a kind of comfort, that stars, even after their radiance has faded, are not gone. They do not vanish. They simply change. They choose stillness over flame. If you were to stand near a white dwarf, not that you could, for its gravity would flatten you into atoms, you would see a surface of perfect stillness. No sunspots, no flares, no roaring storms, just soft light, constant and unblinking, like a pearl glowing from within. That light will continue to shine for billions more years, gradually dimming, cooling, fading, but the structure remains, solid, dense, calm. Some white dwarfs may still carry the quiet scars of their former solar systems. Rings of dust left from shattered planets, faint trails of debris pulled inward. Sometimes these materials fall onto the white dwarf's surface, adding new metals to its thin atmosphere. Even in its stillness, the star continues to gather, to absorb, to listen. It's not uncommon for astronomers to detect calcium, iron, and magnesium in the atmospheres of white dwarfs, elements that likely come from broken worlds. These aren't just stellar corpses, they are cosmic historians. They carry traces of everything they once touched. So when we study them, we are not just studying stars. We are reading the final chapter of solar systems. We are tracing the fall of planets, the slow erosion of moons, the echo of radiance that once filled a sky. This is the beginning of the echo, the moment when the star has let go of its light but not its presence, the point where fire has passed but warmth still lingers. The white dwarf born from silence is not a symbol of the end. It is a memory held in matter. It is what happens when light chooses to stay a little longer. Let us go deeper now into the long memory of the white dwarf, into the echo that continues long after the star's radiance has faded from sight. There is a calm that follows brightness, not like a shadow, but like the hush after a story is told. The white dwarf rests in this hush, still and warm, wrapped in the light of its past. It has no new fuel to burn, no fusion to ignite, no outward storm to churn its surface. And yet it glows. It glows from the heat it holds inside, from the pressure built over billions of years of burning, from the collapse of a star that once lived with fire in its chest. Its surface may appear peaceful, but its core tells another story, a story of matter compressed so tightly that the very structure of atoms has changed. In most stars, atoms move freely, colliding and fusing in wild dances of creation. But in the heart of a white dwarf, there is no room for movement. Electrons are squeezed so close together that they push back not with force but with principle. They follow rules of nature that say, no two of us may be the same. It is this refusal, this law of quantum identity, that holds the white dwarf up. It is not strength as we know it. It is resistance born from stillness. This strange kind of pressure, called electron degeneracy pressure, is unlike anything we experience in our daily world. It is soft and absolute. It allows the white dwarf to balance gravity without fire. It is the silence that resists collapse. And as this object cools, its story continues to unfold. The light it emits comes not from fusion, but from the gentle leaking of heat trapped inside. Like a stone taken from the heart of a furnace, it stays warm for eons. Even after billions of years, its surface temperature may still reach tens of thousands of degrees. Slowly, very slowly, that warmth will drift away, radiating into the endless night. There is something almost sacred about this fading. It is not a decline. It is not decay. It is the transformation of energy into memory. It is the way the universe allows light to linger, long after its source has gone quiet. Some white dwarfs may have companions, other stars. These companions, if close enough, may begin to share their matter. A stream of hydrogen or helium may fall from the companion star onto the white dwarf's surface. At first, this causes little change, but as the material builds up, it grows unstable. And in a sudden flash, fusion may ignite once more, not in the core, but on the surface. A nova. In that moment, the white dwarf lights up again, not with its own voice, but with a borrowed breath. It shines brightly for days or weeks, then settles back into silence. This flash does not undo its stillness. It is a reminder that even in sleep, the white dwarf can stir. But for most white dwarfs, there is no companion, no nova, just the endless drift through space, the slow surrender of warmth, the quieting of its glow. And yet, even in this peace, something extraordinary may happen. As the white dwarf cools, the atoms inside begin to shift, not just randomly, but into order. Carbon atoms settle into regular patterns like snowflakes forming in a still sky. Crystals grow. The white dwarf begins to freeze, not like ice, but like a diamond forming beneath impossible pressure. Scientists believe that most white dwarfs, given enough time, will crystallize at their core. This means the hearts of dead stars become giant, cosmic diamonds, crystalline monuments to their former light. These aren't stones we could ever touch, but they are real, vast, hard, and silent, floating through the galaxy like cold lanterns, no longer burning, but still glowing faintly. There is one such white dwarf in the constellation Centaurus, nicknamed Lucy, after the song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Its core is believed to be crystallized, a glittering jewel the size of Earth, hanging in the dark. We cannot see its crystal with our eyes, but the patterns of light it gives off suggest its inner change. It is humbling to think that this transformation is not rare. It is the expected path, that all white dwarfs may one day become crystals, their light frozen in place, their atoms aligned in silence. And all this while they continue to drift. White dwarfs do not orbit stars, they are stars, and so they wander the galaxy like monks in deep meditation, small, unblinking, and eternal. If one passes near a cloud of gas, it may attract some of that material. If it moves through a region of dust, it may gather the remnants of things long broken. These encounters are quiet. There is no explosion, just a slow accumulation of ancient matter. In this way, the white dwarf continues to participate in the universe, not as a creator, but as a keeper, a record holder, a witness. The silence after radiance is never truly empty. It carries echoes. It holds impressions. It hums with the afterglow of something that once blazed. And in the case of a white dwarf, that afterglow can last longer than galaxies will survive. So the star remains cooling, crystallizing, drifting through time. Its light grows fainter, its heat diminishes, but it never disappears, not yet, not for a long, long time. And even when it does, when the final photon leaves, when the last ember fades, its structure remains, a star turned to stone, a poem turned to whisper. The silence deepens, but the echo continues. Now let us walk gently into the final hush, where the last warmth of the star fades into memory and silence becomes complete. This is not the silence of nothing, but the silence of completion, a kind of cosmic stillness where time flows without hurry and matter no longer burns but endures. The white dwarf, once the core of a sun, now exists not to shine but to remember. It drifts far from its origins. The nebula that once glowed around it has faded into the interstellar sea. The light that once painted worlds has long since scattered across the galaxy. What remains is the white dwarf, its glow dimming with each passing epoch, its surface cooling, its structure slowly crystallizing in the deep. There are no flares now, no eruptions of brilliance. The fusion has ended, the fire has ceased, only the ember remains. And yet the ember lives on. For billions of years, this white dwarf will cool, shedding its heat to the dark around it. But even this slow loss follows no rush. The cooling takes longer than the age of the universe itself. If we could watch it in real time, the change would be invisible, a slow breath stretched across eternity. Each photon of light it releases is like a memory leaving the body, drifting outward to places the star will never see again. Eventually, over unimaginable spans of time, the white dwarf's light will fade below what any eye can detect. Its temperature will fall, its color will vanish. It will become cold, not cold as we know it, but utterly so. It will become a black dwarf. No black dwarfs exist yet. The universe is still young, only about 13.8 billion years old. But when the stars that became white dwarfs have had enough time to lose all their warmth, they will enter this next phase. They will remain as black dwarfs for even longer than they lived as stars, longer than galaxies may remain, longer than atoms may stay whole. The black dwarf will be a relic, an anchor of mass in a sea of entropy. And even then it is not gone, it is not forgotten. It does not disappear into the dark. It becomes part of the structure of the universe itself, a seed of gravity, a keeper of balance, a silent participant in whatever comes next. Some theories suggest that black dwarfs may, in inconceivably distant futures, collapse into neutron stars or explode in rare, quiet ways. Others say they will simply rest forever. No one knows for certain. These timeframes are beyond imagination, beyond even the death of galaxies and the scattering of stars. What we do know is that the journey from shining star to quiet ember to crystalline core is one of immense beauty and patience. The white dwarf represents a form of endurance rarely seen elsewhere. It does not rage against its end. It does not resist the laws of time. It simply follows its course, offering every last ounce of light it can give, and then resting. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of all, that even when the burning stops, even when the energy is spent, there is a kind of peace in what remains. The white dwarf teaches us that endings are not failures, they are transformations, and in those transformations there is truth. You can almost picture it now if you close your eyes. A black dwarf floating through the dark. It does not shine, it does not move quickly, but it exists, it has mass, it holds the echo of a star's life, it remembers warmth, it remembers light. And in the stillness that surrounds it, the universe continues. New stars form, new light bursts forth. But somewhere, scattered across that vast fabric, are these black jewels of memory. They do not speak, but they are listening, they are waiting. Perhaps one day, when the last light of the last star fades, and the universe enters its final quiet, only the black dwarfs will remain. In that silence, the cosmos will be full not of emptiness, but of all the stars that ever were, sleeping in stillness beyond light. And so we return to the beginning, not the beginning of fire, but the beginning of peace. The white dwarf, born from the death of fusion, glowing with the warmth of memory, fading into crystal and shadow, and finally resting as a black dwarf. It is the most silent ending, and perhaps the most beautiful. It is not marked by loss, but by what endures. In this final echo, the star has not disappeared. It has become something else, something ancient, quiet, and true. A star's final echo is not silence. It is presence stretched across time. In the beginning there was only the fall, not the fall of a leaf or a stone, but the fall of dust through time, of gas through silence, of light into gravity's embrace. This is how stars begin, drawn together by the invisible pull of something ancient and endless. Gravity is not loud, it does not announce itself, it does not rush, it simply gathers, it waits, and in waiting it builds. A star is born not in heat but in motion. Dust and hydrogen wander the galaxy, weightless and slow, until gravity invites them inward. Slowly they come closer, slowly they form a cloud, and as that cloud compresses, the temperature at its center begins to rise. It takes millions of years, but the universe has never been in a hurry. Eventually, the pressure at the core becomes so intense that hydrogen atoms are forced to fuse. In that fusion, light is born. The cloud becomes a sun. Gravity, for a moment, finds balance. Outward pressure from fusion pushes against the inward pull of mass, and in that balance, a star finds its shape. But balance cannot last forever. As the star ages, it transforms. Hydrogen runs low. The core, no longer supported by the energy of fusion, begins to collapse. Gravity returns to claim its prize. and the star responds by expanding, its outer layers swelling into a red giant, its inner layers growing hotter and heavier. This process is slow and beautiful. The star brightens then dims. It breathes in great gulps, casting off its skin, layer by layer, into space. The core becomes more compact, more dense. Helium fuses into carbon and oxygen, and for a time a new balance is found. But the path forward is already written. Gravity is not finished. In stars like our Sun, this path leads to the birth of a white dwarf, a small, dense object made not of fire, but of memory. But in more massive stars, gravity pulls harder, and the end is not so peaceful. For some stars, the core continues to collapse. The weight becomes unbearable. Atoms are crushed. Electrons are pushed into protons, creating neutrons. The matter becomes something strange, neutron-rich, small, and impossibly dense. If the mass is great enough, even this is not enough to halt the fall. Gravity lets go not by release, but by continuing inward. The collapse does not stop. It continues past the point of resistance, past the point of light. A black hole is born. But here in the story of white dwarfs, the collapse stops just short. The star does not become a singularity. It does not vanish into shadow. Instead, it crystallizes into silence. It becomes a white dwarf, a compact object supported not by fusion, but by quantum law. This stopping point is fragile. If the star had been heavier, just a little, it would have continued. The threshold is known as the Chandrasekhar limit, a mass of about 1.4 times that of our Sun. Below this limit, a star may rest. Above it, gravity insists on more. And so we return to the white dwarf, a star that has resisted complete collapse, a body that holds itself together with the pressure of electrons refusing to occupy the same space. This is the true miracle of matter, that something so small can hold up something so heavy that quantum rules can push back against gravity. But even this balance is not forever. Over billions of years, the white dwarf will cool, its atoms will slow, its light will dim. Eventually, its core may crystallize, forming a diamond-like lattice in the heart of a former sun. It will continue to exist, not as flame, but as form, not as radiance, but as remainder. In this moment, we understand something quiet and deep. Gravity does not always win. Sometimes it lets go, not because it grows weak, but because resistance grows strong, because within the stillness of electrons, there is a power that cannot be crushed. The white dwarf is a monument to this strange victory. It is the pause that gravity could not undo, the rest that followed the fall. Its surface is smooth, its pull is immense. Its size is small, but its weight is beyond imagining. It spins slowly through the galaxy, not seeking anything, not changing much, but carrying within it the memory of light. That memory lingers. The photons it emits travel across space, reminders of a star that once blazed. Even long after its brightness fades from view, its heat continues to drift, touching planets, brushing comets, warming dust in distant corners of the cosmos. And so the collapse ends not in destruction, but in becoming. The star becomes something new, something final, something still. When gravity lets go, it does not leave emptiness. It leaves form, it leaves structure, it leaves a presence that endures even when the fire has passed. And that presence is the white dwarf, a soft, glowing echo of a time when the star burned bright. Now let us follow the path inward, toward the very heart of what happens when gravity almost wins. The white dwarf does not shine because it burns, it shines because it remembers. And memory, in the language of stars, is warmth held in stillness. The heat trapped inside that small, dense sphere radiates outward not in flares or bursts, but in a constant, gentle exhale. Over billions of years it will dim, but that dimming is not a disappearance, it is a kind of cosmic meditation. At the core of the white dwarf, atoms are crushed into a state unlike anything we experience. Their electrons, pressed close, can no longer freely move in the ways they once did. They are not destroyed, but transformed, pushed into higher energy states simply to obey the quantum rule that no two electrons can share the same space. It's a silent resistance, a fundamental truth of matter asserting itself against collapse. This strange, invisible pressure is not like a wall or a wind. It is the absence of agreement, a refusal to compress any further. This is what holds the white dwarf together, a quiet, unyielding law. And so, even without fusion, even without fire, the star does not fall. It rests, dense, glowing, and still. The white dwarf's gravity is immense. On its surface, gravity is hundreds of thousands of times stronger than on Earth. A pebble dropped there would fall like a mountain. Time itself would slow near its edges. Light escaping from it would be redshifted, stretched by the pull of its compact mass. and yet the surface is quiet, no storms, no winds, no eruptions, only light flowing softly outward. As the white dwarf cools, something delicate begins to happen inside. The carbon and oxygen atoms, once part of the star's searing core, begin to slow. They begin to align. Under immense pressure and falling temperature, they crystallize. A star becomes a crystal, not all at once, but from the inside out. The heart of the white dwarf hardens, not into metal, but into an orderly lattice of atoms, a diamond star, a jewel forged in silence. This crystallization doesn't end the white dwarf's story, it deepens it. It transforms it from a sphere of gas into something more solid, more structured. The cooling continues, the dimming deepens. But now the light must pass through the solid frame of the star's heart. This slows the cooling even further, adding centuries to its glow. Even now, white dwarfs with crystallized cores exist. Astronomers observe their subtle flickering, their slight change in brightness, and from these clues they infer what the eye cannot see. The inner shift from plasma to solid, the quiet freezing of light itself. And still the white dwarf remains in motion. It moves through the galaxy, not bound to its birthplace, no longer orbited by planets, no longer anchored by light. It drifts through the spiral arms like a lantern that forgot to flicker out. Some carry with them the dusty remnants of once living solar systems, rings of rock and metal, crumbling asteroids drawn inward by gravity's whisper. These fragments sometimes fall onto the white dwarf's surface, their descent ending in quiet ruin. The metals they carry, calcium, iron, magnesium, sink quickly below the surface, hidden beneath the thin layer of hydrogen or helium. But before they vanish, they leave their mark. They tell a story of broken planets, scattered moons, and systems long gone cold. White dwarfs are, in this way, archaeologists of the cosmos. They gather what remains, they keep it, however briefly. And through careful study, we can read in their light the story of what once orbited, what once breathed, what once lived under their sun. This connection between death and memory is central to the white dwarf's meaning. It is not only a remainder, it is a record. Its structure holds the entire history of its stellar life, locked in layers of pressure and cooling light. It is both the end and the archive. Even in this quiet, white dwarfs continue to surprise us. Some spin quickly, completing a full rotation in minutes. Others have magnetic fields thousands of times stronger than Earth's. These fields twist and shape the thin gases around them, forming strange halos, subtle patterns, delicate emissions. All of it quiet, slow, almost imperceptible, but still there. And in rare cases, a white dwarf might not remain solitary. In binary systems, two white dwarfs can orbit each other in silence for billions of years. Slowly, gravity draws them together. As they spiral inward, they radiate away energy, their orbit shrinking, until one day in the far future they meet. And in that meeting, if their combined mass exceeds the Chandrasekhar limit, a final burst of light may come, a Type Ia supernova. A last, spectacular flash born from the merging of two fading stars. But that is not the fate of most. Most white dwarfs will never explode. Most will simply cool, and in that cooling they will enter a stage no one has yet seen. After trillions of years, long after galaxies have unraveled and stars have burned their last fuel, white dwarfs will reach their final phase. Their light will fall below detectability. Their heat will fade into the background temperature of the universe, and what remains will be a black dwarf. Cold, invisible, solid. And still, somehow, beautiful. Not because it shines, but because it endured, because it held itself together not through force but through refusal, because it became what gravity could not break. And in that resistance, there is a kind of peace the universe rare. Lie grants. The white dwarf's silence is not absence, it is presence perfected by time. Let us now drift gently toward the final chapter in this long, slow unraveling. The white dwarf, once the silent ember of a star, now becomes quieter still. Its light grows faint, like breath on a mirror fading into the air. And yet, even in this near darkness, there is something deeply alive in what it leaves behind. This is not the end of a star, but its softest transformation, a surrender without collapse, a rest that echoes through the fabric of time. For trillions of years, the white dwarf will cool, slowly, methodically, no rush, no alarm, just the calm contraction of light into memory. The photons it once flung across space now become fewer. The heat it once held at its core begins to dwindle. The glow of its surface softens until it slips below what any eye, human or machine, could ever see, but the star is still there, solid, dense, whole. This is the birth of what scientists call a black dwarf. It is, as far as we know, a theoretical destination. No black dwarfs exist yet. The universe is simply not old enough. But in time, when the stars have all burned through their lifetimes and white dwarfs have cooled past the threshold of light, they will remain dark, heavy, ancient objects. They will not emit, they will not shine, but they will be. And that being so quiet, so still, will be the last shape of starlight. It's hard to imagine such a future, a universe without light, a cosmos where all stars have gone quiet, where no new stars are born and no warmth remains but in isolated pockets of collapsing gravity. Yet this is the natural conclusion of time's long journey. All things cool, all things slow, even the most radiant must one day rest. But resting does not mean ceasing. The black dwarf, though cold, is not broken. Though dark, it is not empty. It holds inside it the same mass, the same structure, the same resistance that allowed the white dwarf to exist. Its gravity still bends the space around it. Its atoms are still locked in the quiet, crystalline hush of long-forgotten light, and in that stillness it speaks, if not to us, then to the universe. It says, "I was a star, I burned, I warmed worlds, I brought color to darkness and form to chaos, and now I remain." There is something deeply tender in the idea that even after a star's fire has long gone out, it can still affect the world around it. A black dwarf might still hold small satellites in orbit, broken moons, or icy remnants of ancient planets. It might pass silently through clouds of dust, its passage unseen, but its pull undeniable. It will not burn, it will not sing, but it will shape. And over unfathomable timescales, even these final remnants may meet their end. Some theories suggest that black dwarfs may eventually decay through quantum tunneling, slowly dissolving into lighter particles. Others say they may last forever, unchanged, until the fabric of spacetime itself begins to fray. But whatever the future holds, the black dwarf will have lived the full arc of starlight, from gas to flame to ember to stone. All along this path, gravity was both the sculptor and the hand. It gathered the star from dust. It crushed the core. It halted the collapse with a whisper of quantum law. And finally, it held the star still for eternity. When gravity lets go, it does not fall apart. It simply reshapes. And so the white dwarf becomes the black dwarf. The last breath becomes a long, unbroken silence. And that silence is not sorrow. It is not emptiness. It is the peace that follows a life fully spent. A peace that needs no voice to speak, no light to be seen. There is a kind of comfort in this, that even the universe, so vast, so violent, allows for such endings. Not with fire, not with noise, but with stillness, with duration, with transformation. The next time you look into the night sky, remember, some of the stars you see have already finished burning. Their light is old, their fire is gone. What you witness is their echo, the last chapter of their radiance reaching your eyes. And somewhere far beyond what we can see, the white dwarfs drift. And someday those glowing embers will become dark, cold stones in space, not forgotten, just changed. The universe does not erase, it rewrites. It does not discard, it transforms. And in that final, darkened form, the black dwarf becomes a monument, not just to what once was, but to what endured. A symbol of resistance, of rest, of the soft balance between gravity and time. The collapse of light is not a tragedy. It is a return, a folding inward, a story told slowly to be read by silence itself. And so we end, not with an explosion, not with a flame, but with a pause, a final exhale from a star that once burned bright. A whisper written into the fabric of space. And then the quiet. There is something strange and wonderful that happens in the quiet hearts of dying stars, not with explosions or fire, but with stillness. It begins after the burning stops, after the light that once traveled for light years softens to a quiet pulse. Deep inside, beyond what any eye can see, the core of a white dwarf begins to change, not quickly, not loudly, but slowly, patiently, the way ice forms on a silent lake, the way memory hardens in the mind. This is frozen fire, the last gift of a star. It begins long before the freezing, when the star is still alive. In the heart of every main sequence star, hydrogen fuses into helium. When hydrogen runs out, the helium itself becomes fuel, igniting in a brighter, shorter fire. As heavier elements form, like carbon and oxygen, the star swells into a red giant, casting off its outer layers in glimmering arcs of gas and dust. What remains is a white dwarf, the carbon-oxygen core, compressed into a glowing ember, no larger than Earth, but heavier than the sun. At first, the white dwarf is unbearably hot. Its surface can reach over 100,000 degrees Kelvin, but without fusion to replenish that energy, the heat begins to fade. Not in years, not in centuries, but in spans of time so vast that they cannot be measured by any clock we've ever made. As the white dwarf cools, something remarkable begins to happen deep inside. The atoms in the white dwarf, once vibrating with furious heat, begin to slow. The carbon and oxygen that form its interior are no longer free to move as they once did. Instead, they begin to settle, to lock into patterns, to form structures, not randomly but with precision, with order. Like snowflakes in winter, they begin to crystallize. This crystallization does not happen all at once. It begins at the core, where the pressure is greatest and the temperature lowest. From there it spreads outward slowly like frost on glass. A star, once fluid and furious, begins to harden into a crystal. Its heart becomes solid, not cold exactly, but still. Its atoms arrange into long lattices, forming something like a diamond, but far more vast. Imagine that, a diamond the size of Earth, hanging alone in space, a relic of a star that once lit the skies of its system. It doesn't glitter, it doesn't flash, but it holds a kind of beauty that only time can shape. The discovery of this phenomenon did not come easily. For years, scientists suspected that the cores of white dwarfs might crystallize, but only in 2019 did they find the clearest evidence. By studying the cooling curves, the rate at which white dwarfs fade, they found irregularities, sudden slowdowns in temperature loss. Something was storing energy, holding onto heat longer than expected. That something was the phase transition of matter, liquid carbon and oxygen transforming into a solid state. Just as water releases heat when it freezes into ice, the white dwarf releases latent heat during crystallization. It is a quiet glow, a thermal resistance that slows the star's dimming. And in that slowing, scientists glimpse the formation of cosmic crystals. The implications are vast. If most white dwarfs crystallize as they cool, and all signs point to that, they may form the largest crystals in the universe. Not rare jewels, but common fates. Billions of these objects may already be glittering invisibly in the dark, scattered throughout galaxies, each one the frozen heart of a long-dead sun. Some of these stars were once like our own, stars with planets, with moons, with oceans and winds and life, their light-fed worlds, their gravity held families of celestial bodies in rhythm, and now, after all the motion and warmth, they rest in perfect stillness. Their fire has not been extinguished, only transformed into geometry, into order, into something eternal. Even now, the star called BPM 37093, about 50 light-years away in the constellation Centaurus, is believed to be undergoing this crystallization. Nicknamed Lucy, after the Beatles' song, she is one of the best-studied white dwarfs. Scientists believe that her core may be over 90% crystallized, a vast, slowly growing diamond hidden inside a fading shell of heat. And Lucy is not alone. Across the Milky Way, there are likely billions of white dwarfs undergoing this same process, their cores hardening like tree rings, marking the age of their cooling. Unlike other stars, they do not change quickly. They offer no drama, no flares. They simply become more themselves, quieter, denser, and more beautifully still. It is a strange thought to consider that the final gift of a star may not be light, but structure, that what remains is not ash, but crystal. That frozen fire may last longer than radiance ever could. And yet this is the nature of time, not to erase but to reshape, not to destroy but to preserve in a different form. The white dwarf carries its past inside it, not in motion but in pattern, not in color but in the alignment of its atoms. And in doing so, it becomes more than what it was. It becomes something new. It becomes a star made of crystal, the frozen fire of tea. Universe. Let us drift now into the deep interior of this frozen fire, this crystal heart of a star, where pressure holds firm and silence has weight. Inside a crystallizing white dwarf, time stretches beyond imagination. Nothing stirs. There are no tectonic plates, no seas, no sound. Just atoms tightly packed, bound by invisible laws, arranging themselves with slow perfection into lattices that extend for thousands of kilometers in every direction. This is not ice. This is not metal. It is something altogether stranger. A crystal forged in gravity, shaped in heat, and cooled by the breath of the cosmos itself. When we think of fire, we think of change, of movement, of something fierce and bright. But the fire that once lived in the heart of this star has become something else, something fixed. It is no longer consuming fuel. It is no longer pushing back against gravity. The outward pressure that once balanced the inward collapse has been replaced by something more abstract, quantum resistance. It's not a fight, but a stillness, a structure that refuses to shrink any further. And within that refusal, new beauty arises. As the temperature inside the white dwarf continues to fall, the atoms that once moved freely begin to slow and then to lock into place. This process releases heat, not dramatic, not sudden, but gentle, like the last warmth of a fire curling through ash. That latent heat slows the star's cooling, leaving a signature that astronomers on Earth can detect. The light becomes more stable, the dimming more gradual. In this steadiness lies the fingerprint of a changing state. It is a transformation unlike any we know. On Earth, crystals form in caves or in lava flows, in chemical solutions and natural chambers of heat and pressure. But here, the scale is unimaginable. A single crystal, tens of thousands of kilometers across, formed not from dripping minerals but from the rearrangement of atomic matter itself. The whole star becomes a solid, a lattice bound together not by chemical bonds but by quantum stability and sheer pressure. And what is most extraordinary is that this process is expected, not rare, not exceptional, a fate written for nearly all white dwarfs, waiting only for enough time to pass. The youngest white dwarfs are still hot, still radiant, still in the early phases of their long journey towards silence, but eventually they will all freeze, they will all harden into crystals, and they will all remain, drifting like forgotten relics in the velvet dark of space. This is not just the end of heat, it is the preservation of shape. The frozen core remembers the star it once was. The arrangement of matter, the carbon, the oxygen, the slow folding into crystal speaks of a past filled with light. The star, though no longer burning, has not been erased, it has been etched. Its memory has taken form. There is too something poetic in how a star's death is not a falling apart but a coming together, not a dispersal but a gathering of order. After all the fire and fusion, after the blowing off of layers and the shrinking of its core, the star becomes something more defined. Its boundaries sharpen. Its atoms choose stillness over movement, clarity over chaos, and in doing so they become something new. To witness this process, even from afar, is to witness time carved into matter. Astronomers, watching the slow flicker of cooling white dwarfs, are not seeing explosions or bursts of energy. They are seeing quiet change, a gentle slope into crystallization, the signature of frozen fire. And in this freezing, time takes on a new shape. A white dwarf may glow for billions of years. The crystallization within extends that lifespan, slowing the outward bleed of heat, keeping the ember warm long after its brightness should have gone. The star becomes its own blanket. The more it freezes, the longer it endures. It is possible, perhaps even likely, that some of the oldest white dwarfs in the universe have nearly completed this transformation. Their cores fully crystallized, their surfaces dim, their warmth fading slowly into the cold sea of interstellar space. These are the ancient ones, the cosmic elders. They hold inside them the story not just of a single star, but of the galaxy that birthed them. They are time capsules made not of metal or glass, but of atoms held together in perfect quiet. In the future, long after our sun has swollen into a red giant, long after Earth has vanished beneath its heat, our own star will leave behind a white dwarf. And in time, that dwarf will cool. It will crystallize. Its heart will become a frozen jewel, spinning through the galaxy like a lighthouse whose lamp has gone out but whose shape remains. Imagine floating beside it, no sound, no motion, only the faint, ghostly glow of a surface still warm from ages past, and beneath that surface a structure more perfect than anything made by hand, a solid heart formed from the collapse of fire, the stillness O. F. Atoms, the endless pressure of being. It is a reminder that endings are not always dark, that some flames, when extinguished, do not vanish but transform. That fire can leave behind something that shines not with light but with form, something solid, something still, something eternal. This is what it means to freeze a star, to allow time to complete its slow work, to let heat soften into stillness, to trade brightness for structure, to shape the future out of the remains of light. It is a kind of quiet alchemy. The final phase of radiance, not in flames but in form. Now let us arrive softly at the quietest part of the story, the place where time no longer rushes, where warmth has almost forgotten itself, and where what was once a star has become something else entirely. There is no celebration in this moment, no sudden change, no flash or collapse, only the quiet settling of matter into its final form. A crystal vast and dark, suspended in space like a heartbeat held in pause. A white dwarf, now more ice than fire, more memory than light. As it cools further, the white dwarf fades from view. Its glow dims, not in dramatic bursts but in slow breaths stretched over billions of years. The energy once held in its core radiates outward, gently warming the vacuum around it, whispering the last heat of a star into the arms of a cold and waiting universe. But even that whisper grows fainter. With each passing eon, the warmth retreats, the atoms slow, and the transformation completes. Eventually, the surface of the white dwarf will become as cold as the cosmic background. It will cease to shine. Its temperature will fall until it no longer gives off detectable heat. Its light, once a signature of life and fusion and fire, will disappear entirely. And in that moment, the white dwarf becomes a black dwarf, a body of perfect silence, colder than any known thing, holding within it the last shape of a star. But calling it black is misleading. It is not black like charcoal or shadows. It is beyond black, beyond light altogether, not dark in color but invisible in presence. Not unseen because it hides, but because it no longer calls attention to itself. It becomes part of the background, blending with the fabric of space like a thought so old that it becomes instinct. Still it remains. The black dwarf holds weight, it has mass, it shapes space. Its gravity bends the paths of wandering objects. It can still attract, still anchor, still move silently through the galaxy like a forgotten lighthouse. The fire is gone, yes, but the presence is not. This end, if it can be called an end, is not one of loss. It is one of arrival. The black dwarf is the resting state of a journey that began in chaos and light. From a cloud of gas, pulled together by gravity, ignited by fusion, expanded in brilliance, and now cooled into permanence. This is the full arc of a medium star's life. Not an explosion, not a collapse, but a crystallization of time itself. And what makes this story so quietly powerful is not just the physics. It is the patience, the duration, the willingness of the universe to let something endure even after its work is done. The white dwarf, now frozen, now black, is not erased. It is held, it is kept, it is remembered. The universe does not discard easily. It keeps the shapes of its stars long after their light has faded. And though we may never see a black dwarf with our own eyes, the universe is not yet old enough for even one to exist. We know they are coming. We know the process has begun. And we know that someday they will outnumber all that shines. Long after the last galaxy has lost its light, long after the last stars have fused their final hydrogen, long after black holes have evaporated and planets have grown cold, the black dwarfs will remain, each one a monument, each one a silence that once was fire. And perhaps in that distant future, if something, some form of awareness, still drifts through the cosmos, it will find them. It will detect their gravity. It will study their spin. It will trace their structure and see in their crystallized bones the story of the stars that came before. And it will know this was once a sun, this held planets, this lit skies and warmed oceans, this gave light to life. The journey from radiance to rest is not a tragedy. It is the shape of everything that endures. Fire is a beginning, stillness is the final art. So as we consider our own star still burning bright, we may look ahead with quiet reverence. For in time, our sun too will follow this path. It will shine, expand, let go, and rest. And what will remain billions of years from now will not be emptiness. It will be a frozen jewel drifting through space. Not lost, not gone, just changed. A memory made solid. A flame folded into crystal. A whisper that never needed to shout. And in that silence, the universe will still remember. Far from the glowing spirals of galaxies, beyond the chatter of stars and the shimmer of light, there are places where the cosmos grows quiet, where not everything that began the journey into stardom ever quite made it to flame. These are not failed stars, though some might call them that. They are objects that almost became suns, but not quite. They are something between a promise and a pause, something formed by gravity but untouched by fire. This is the story of the star that forgot to burn. In the great clouds of hydrogen and helium that float through space, stars are born in pockets of collapse. Gravity gathers the gas, presses it inward, heats it slowly until fusion is kindled deep at the center. When fusion begins, a star begins to shine. But if the mass isn't quite enough, if the gravitational pull isn't strong enough, something different happens. The collapse begins, but the burn never arrives. Instead of a shining star, what forms is a brown dwarf. The name is gentle, and so is the object itself. Brown dwarfs are not bright. They do not ignite in the way stars do. They are warm, not hot, dim, not radiant. They glow softly in infrared, invisible to our eyes like coals buried beneath ash. For a long time they were only imagined, objects too massive to be planets, too light to be stars. But with better telescopes and gentler patience, we've found them. Dozens, hundreds. Quiet bodies scattered through space, alone or circling other stars like shadows that forgot to shine. A brown dwarf is born just like a star. It begins in a cloud of gas, in the soft hum of collapse. But instead of reaching the 10 million degrees needed for hydrogen fusion, its core stabilizes at a lower temperature. Some brown dwarfs can fuse deuterium, a heavier form of hydrogen, for a while, but even that fire is short-lived. They never blaze, they never flare, they warm and fade, they cool across billions of years. These unburnt stars still carry mass, enough to bend space, enough to hold moons in orbit. But they do not light the sky. They move through the galaxy almost invisibly, felt more than seen. Their presence is like a held breath, a soft gravitational pulse in the dark. And perhaps that is what makes them so mysterious. They are not broken, they are not remnants, they are beginnings that paused. They hold the shape of stars but not the voice. Their interiors are dense and pressurized, yet still missing the heat to spark nuclear change. The same processes that tried to make a star exist inside them, but slowed, dimmed, suspended in something that feels like sleep. Imagine standing near one if you could. The gravity would be immense, the heat barely enough to warm your skin. You wouldn't be blinded. There would be no solar wind, no bright corona, no radiant disk of fire. Just a warm, brownish glow like a sunset frozen in place. Around you, space would stretch, quiet and smooth, with the brown dwarf sitting like a stone warmed by memory. They drift alone, these almost stars. Or sometimes they accompany other stars, circling silently like forgotten twins. They may be part of binary systems, bound to brighter companions orbiting in the shadows. In some systems, they mimic planets. In others, they roam free. Their diversity is wide, yet their lives are slow. They are the introverts of the stellar world, present but withdrawn. And they are ancient. Some brown dwarfs may be nearly as old as the galaxy itself, still cooling from their quiet beginnings. Their temperatures fall gradually, from thousands of degrees to hundreds over billions of years. Eventually, some may become nearly invisible, black dwarfs in all but name, cooling in perfect obscurity. Others remain just warm enough to glow softly in the infrared, like embers waiting for a wind that will never come. But they are not useless. Brown dwarfs contribute to the galaxy in quiet ways. Their mass shapes motion. Their gravity pulls on stars and gas clouds. They may serve as the birthplaces for planets or as quiet companions that help stabilize orbits. Though they do not shine, they influence everything around them. They are the unseen hands in the dance of galaxies. And inside, despite their silence, there is structure. Their cores are governed by the same quantum pressures that support white dwarfs, electron degeneracy pressure. This means their matter is dense and firm, compressed into strange states. No fusion, no flame, but still resistance, still form, still presence. Perhaps the most touching truth is this: a brown dwarf is not a mistake. It is a part of nature's spectrum, a reminder that not every story needs brightness to be whole. Some lives are quiet from the start. Some stars choose to warm instead of burn, and in that warmth they endure, not as brilliant flashes, but as steady whispers through time. When we think of stars, we often think of light, but light is only one way of being. Brown dwarfs remind us that even in the absence of flame, there can be depth, shape, gravity, and grace. They are the soft footstep. Of star formation, the almosts, the not-quites, the gentle refusals. And in that refusal, they find another kind of beauty. The star that forgot to burn didn't disappear. It simply learned how to stay. Let us go deeper now into the soft interior of the star that never found its fire. The brown dwarf, though dim and quiet, is not lifeless. It breathes with slow gravity. Its atoms are not chaotic, but they are not still. They hold energy, not enough to ignite like a true star, but enough to glow softly in the invisible spectrum. And inside, the pressure is immense. Though it does not blaze with fusion, it balances its own weight with the pushback of quantum mechanics. Its existence is held in tension, not in flame, but in form. Brown dwarfs are curious objects caught between definitions. They are not quite planets, not quite stars. They are born from the same processes that give rise to suns, collapsing clouds of gas folding inward under their own weight. But their mass falls just short of the threshold for full hydrogen fusion. The line is faint, drawn somewhere around 0.08 solar masses. Below it, a core simply cannot become hot enough. It reaches high temperatures, perhaps a few million degrees, but not the 10 million needed to spark the long fire. And yet in that absence, something remarkable persists. Brown dwarfs can fuse deuterium, an isotope of hydrogen, if they are slightly massive. This fusion is brief, a flicker rather than a flame, lasting only a few million years. Afterward, they fall into slow cooling, entering a phase that will last longer than any ordinary star's lifetime. Others, less massive still, never fuse anything at all. These are sometimes called sub-brown dwarfs, objects born of gas and gravity, but too light even to spark the smallest fire. Still, these quiet bodies endure. For billions upon billions of years, they cool, their surfaces darken. Their temperatures fall from thousands of Kelvin to hundreds and eventually to tens. In time, they may become indistinguishable from large gas giants, cloaked in chill and stillness. But even then, they remain distinct, more massive, more compressed, more deeply structured. Inside, the matter behaves strangely. The density is so great that electrons can no longer move freely. They are forced into unique states, not by heat or pressure alone, but by the rules of quantum exclusion. No two electrons can occupy the same quantum state. This resistance creates a counterforce, electron degeneracy pressure, that stops the object from collapsing under its own weight. This same principle supports white dwarfs. It is a quiet, invisible pushback. A refusal written into the rules of the universe. The result is a body more compressed than a planet, more massive than Jupiter, and yet still cool, still unlit. Some brown dwarfs may have cores made of exotic ices or metals, formed under such pressure that ordinary matter folds into unfamiliar shapes. Their atmospheres are thick, often cloudy, filled with dust and complex molecules. Silicates and iron may condense into clouds, creating storms of molten sand and iron rain. From a distance, this star that never burned would seem unremarkable. It might appear in infrared scans as a faint glow, nothing more. But up close, it is a massive world, coiled with gravity, its surface flickering faintly with heat left over from formation. No solar flares, no bursts of X-rays, just warmth held tightly, leaking slowly into space. In a way, this restrained brilliance is a different kind of power. Brown dwarfs can live longer than stars precisely because they do not spend their energy quickly. They do not burn out. They cool slowly over trillions of years. Even when all the stars we know today have passed into white dwarfs or neutron stars, the brown dwarfs will remain dim, cool, unchanged. Their stillness is not failure, it is endurance. And what is more, they may host worlds of their own. Some brown dwarfs have been found with orbiting planets, gas giants, super-Earths, strange icy spheres. These planets circle a sun that barely glows, bathed not in bright light but in the soft heat of near invisibility. What would it be like to stand on such a planet? The sky would be dark, starless to the naked eye, save for the dim outline of the brown dwarf, like a dusk that never deepens, a warm shadow always overhead. Life in theory could arise even here. If a planet orbited close enough to absorb the brown dwarf's warmth, if it had a thick enough atmosphere to hold that heat, if chemistry found a way to work more slowly, then life could emerge, not in bursts but in whispers. The galaxy may be filled with such quiet places, worlds without sunlight, warmed by forgotten stars. And if no life comes, still the beauty endures. The brown dwarf is a record of what could have been, a story almost told, a song almost sung. It holds the shape of light without the brightness, the weight of a sun without the shine. It is not incomplete. It is simply different. Some brown dwarfs may wander alone through interstellar space, unbound to any system. These free-floating bodies, like solitary notes drifting through the music of gravity, do not need orbits to define them. They move where the galaxy allows, carrying their mass and their warmth and their quiet presence through the night. We once thought the sky was filled only with bright stars, but now we know better. The galaxy is populated with countless objects that do not shine but still shape. The unseen forms, the brown dwarfs, the rogue planets, the quiet moons, are not lesser. They are the deep background of the cosmos, the gentle presence beneath all brilliance. And the brown dwarf, the star that forgot to burn, reminds us that not all stories are told in light. Some are written in warmth, and in the long patience of time. Now let us enter the quiet future of the star that never burned, a future not made of light, but of gravity, persistence, and time beyond measure. The brown dwarf has already lived for billions of years, and still it endures. It does not change quickly. It does not flicker or fail. It continues to cool slowly, silently, holding its shape as the galaxy spins and the universe grows old around it. In the far future, when the bright stars have faded and the spiral arms of galaxies have softened into silence, the brown dwarfs will remain. They do not age the way stars do. They do not exhaust themselves. They are not engines but embers. Their warmth comes not from fusion but from collapse, the slow contraction of mass into form, the quiet storage of energy in compressed atoms. As the universe cools, so do they, from thousands of degrees to hundreds, then to tens, and then perhaps even lower. Their light, already faint, slips beyond visibility. They glow only in the infrared now, their heat drifting out like breath on a winter morning. Eventually, even that will vanish. But this process takes longer than the mind can grasp. Tens of billions of years pass like heartbeats in their presence. Trillions even, and still they cool. What then do they become? Not ashes, not dust, but structure. They remain massive, still more so than any planet. They are not cold rocks or frozen gas giants. They are something else entirely. A compressed form of matter that has held its shape across the great turning of time. Their interiors stay dense, their gravity still potent. They bend space, they move objects. They continue, even when all that once surrounded them has faded into silence. And they are not alone. Throughout the galaxy, hundreds of billions of brown dwarfs float in the dark, unseen but present. Many formed long ago when the Milky Way was still young. Others continue to form even now in the outer reaches of gas clouds where starlight is thin. The universe still makes these quiet companions. It always has. It likely always will. Some will be found. Astronomers, using the slow gaze of infrared telescopes, will glimpse their heat signatures tucked between the stars. Others will remain hidden, passing undetected as they wander through interstellar space. Perhaps a few have passed near our own sun, their approach too silent to notice. But they were there, and they left a gentle fingerprint on the gravity around them. And yet in all this stillness, the brown dwarf is not inert. It is a participant. Its mass may help form new stars, tug on gas clouds, nudge comets from their ancient paths. If it has a companion, it may exchange energy, heat, or even matter. It may be a quiet node in the cosmic web, connecting stars through its soft but steady gravity. Its very existence challenges our definition of what a star is. Must a star shine? Must it burn? Or is it enough simply to be born of stardust, to be shaped by collapse, to endure across time? The brown dwarf says yes. Yes to stillness. Yes to survival. Yes to the slow unfolding of a life that does not depend on fire. And for the planets that orbit it, if they exist, the brown dwarf is a kind of quiet sun. Not a source of radiance, but of warmth, a center that holds, a glow that never dazzles but never disappears. Their skies are not filled with brilliant light, but with a gentle hue, a never-ending dusk. Perhaps these worlds are cold, perhaps they are barren, or perhaps wrapped in thick atmospheres they are rich with chemistry. Perhaps life, if it is there, is slow, deliberate, dreamlike. In this cosmic silence, we see a reflection of something profoundly human. The brown dwarf is not the most visible, not the brightest, not the most celebrated, but it remains, it is enough. It fulfills its own form, not by exceeding expectation, but by existing fully in what it is. It does not pretend to be a star. It does not compete with the sun. It follows its own curve through time. And in that curve, it shows us a truth that light alone cannot offer. That to endure is not to fail. That to glow softly is still to glow. That warmth held patiently may last far longer than fire. In time, the galaxies will stretch, the stars will fade, the black holes will evaporate, but long after, perhaps one of the last objects to exist will be a brown dwarf, cold, silent, almost invisible, yet still whole, still present, still bearing the mark of gravity's ancient pull. Its atoms will remain compressed, its core will remain still, it will not speak, but it will exist. The star that forgot to burn was never lost. It simply found a different way to remain. And in the final dark, when all else is gone, its warmth may be the last whisper the universe remembers. Somewhere in the quiet fold between galaxies, where the light begins to thin and the cold becomes absolute, the universe gathers its memories. Not in books or voices, not in images or echoes, but in the bodies of stars that once lived and burned and faded. These stellar remnants, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes, are more than endings. They are the archives of time. They are how the cosmos remembers what it has been. When a star dies, it does not vanish. Its mass remains. Its shape transforms. Its light may go out, but the evidence of its life continues. It is as if the universe never forgets a flame once kindled, no matter how faint its afterglow. It holds on to every ember, every cinder, every piece of matter shaped by fire and collapse. And in doing so, it becomes a place not just of creation, but of remembrance. The process of remembering begins the moment a star begins to change. As its fuel runs low, its core contracts and its outer layers swell. It becomes a giant, then sheds its skin. It becomes dense, then denser still. Whether it leaves behind a white dwarf or collapses further into a neutron star or vanishes into a black hole, the end is never truly an end. It is a continuation, a new chapter written in the script of gravity. The galaxy in turn becomes a kind of graveyard, but not a place of sorrow, a place of transformation, a place where the past is stored not in sadness but in shape. These remnants orbit the galactic center like beads on an invisible string. Some are solitary, floating alone through space. Others remain tethered to companion stars or drift in clusters, and all of them carry within their forms the marks of what came before. A white dwarf with its quiet glow and crystallizing heart holds the last warmth of a sun. A neutron star, barely 20 kilometers across yet heavier than the sun, contains a core of pure nuclear memory, its atoms crushed until protons and electrons become neutrons, forming a single body of almost unimaginable density. A spoonful would weigh more than a mountain. Its surface might be smoother than glass. Its gravity would stretch light itself. And then there are the black holes, silent voids formed from stars so massive that even light cannot escape their pull. These are the most mysterious of all, not just because we cannot see them, but because we cannot fully know them. They do not emit, they do not reflect, but they exist. Their presence can be felt in the bending of starlight, in the tug of orbits, in the dance of matter spiraling inward. Even these, the darkest of remnants, are memories. They mark where a star once was. They carry the mass that once gave light. The black hole may not remember its star's surface or its planets or its solar wind, but it remembers the weight, the center, the fall. It is the final record of a star's collapse. And beyond the individual remnants, the universe remembers in larger patterns. The elements forged in stars, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron, are scattered into space by stellar winds and supernovae. These atoms drift through nebulae, settle into new clouds, become part of new stars, new planets, new lives. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your cells, all were once inside a star that lived and died long before Earth was born. The cosmos remembers in this way, by keeping nothing still, by folding memory into matter, by letting it pass forward, by shaping every new thing from the remnants of what came before. Every white dwarf, every glowing supernova remnant, every neutron core is a kind of journal written in the language of pressure and time. It is easy to think of death as erasure, but in the universe, death is more often a scattering, a breaking open, a spreading of parts. A white dwarf gives its gases to the void. A supernova sends its elements rushing into the night. A black hole takes mass inward, but leaves behind waves of gravity that ripple across space itself. The stars do not end. They dissolve, they transform, they echo. And the galaxy listens. It listens with every forming star, every cooling planet, every drifting comet. The new is born from the old. The future is shaped by the past. Infinity is not a void, but a net, catching everything that falls, holding it together with the threads of gravity and light. So when we look at the night sky, we are not only seeing the present, we are looking at the record. Each point of light is a now and a then. Some of the stars we see have already died, but their light still travels. Some remnants glide invisibly between those brighter points, their gravity unseen but deeply felt. And in this way the universe remembers, not as we do with language or photographs, but with structure, with mass, with persistence. Every star that ever lived has left something behind. And the cosmos, infinite and silent, cradles it all in arms we cannot see, but can always feel. Let us drift further now into the quiet archives of the universe, into the scattered, glowing relics that float like lanterns across time. Here, among the remnants of once burning stars, we find the patient hands of the cosmos at work, shaping the future from the dust of the past. These remnants are not forgotten. They are how the universe remembers in form, in motion, in gravity, in light that no longer burns but still reflects what once was. Every white dwarf that rests in space is a page in this memory. Its crystalline core carries the shape of fire that no longer flickers. Its cooling glow, slow and steady, is the softest of goodbyes stretched over billions of years. Its density, unimaginable by earthly standards, speaks of what happens when matter refuses to let go. These objects are quiet and small, but in them entire lifetimes are preserved. Each one is a story of burning, of fusion, of gradual letting go. Somewhere deeper still, in the densest corners of this quiet record, are neutron stars. Born from the violent collapse of massive stars, they are not soft like white dwarfs. They are sharp and sudden, the echo of an explosion so great it reshaped the matter at the very center of the star. In a moment, protons and electrons collapse into neutrons. The core becomes a single, coherent object, so dense that it warps time itself. Neutron stars spin rapidly, some hundreds of times each second. They shoot beams of radiation into space like cosmic lighthouses. When these beams sweep past Earth, we detect them as pulses. Pulsars, we call them. Flickers of precise regularity that speak not of chaos, but of order. A heartbeat carved into space by gravity and collapse. These pulses are the ticking of a cosmic clock, so steady they rival the best machines we've ever built. Even now, the universe listens to those beats. Astronomers track them to study the nature of time, the fabric of space, and the mysteries of matter under pressure. Each neutron star is like a key pressed onto the piano of spacetime, its tone sharp, its duration eternal. Then there are black holes, the deepest vaults in the universe's memory. When a massive star dies and nothing remains to stop the collapse, it falls inward past the point of return. Its mass curves space so sharply that even light cannot escape. A black hole is not a place. It is a horizon, a boundary, a memory folded so tightly into itself that it cannot be seen, only felt. We do not see black holes, we see their influence. The stars that dance around them, the light that stretches near their edges, the gas that heats as it spirals inward. We see the gravitational waves they send through the fabric of the universe when two black holes collide. These waves, discovered only recently, are the sound of the cosmos remembering in motion. Even when we cannot touch these remnants, we feel their presence. Their gravity holds galaxies together. Their echoes shape what comes next. Some black holes sit quietly in the hearts of galaxies, including our own, anchoring the stars in their orbits. Others wander, born from ancient explosions, carrying within them the final breath of long-dead suns. All of this, the white dwarfs, the neutron stars, the black holes, is a form of remembrance. The stars gave light, they gave warmth. They forged the elements that built planets, oceans, clouds, and breath. And then they left behind their cores, not empty, not lost, but transformed. And the cosmos holds them close. Even the smallest remnants are included. The atoms that spilled into space from supernovae drift through the galaxy like dust on a slow wind. Eventually they fall into new clouds. Those clouds collapse. New stars are born. New planets form. And within them are the very same atoms that once lived in older stars. The past is not behind us. It is within us. Every breath you take contains argon atoms once exhaled by ancient stars. Every heartbeat moves with iron forged in stellar cores. We are not separate from the cosmos memory, we are part of it. Our bodies are built from the records of stars. The universe does not only remember in stars and stones, it remembers in cells, in hands, in thought. And yet this process is not one of keeping everything the same. It is a memory that reshapes, reuses, reframes. The universe does not trap its past, it lets it move forward. The light of a dead star may still shine, the mass of a collapsed sun may still shape the path of comets. The dust of exploded stars may become part of trees, oceans, and mines. In this way, memory in the universe is never still. It flows. It weaves itself into the present. It makes the future from the residue of fire. And so even though the stars die, they do not leave nothing. They leave the blueprint for new stars. They leave material. They leave gravity. They leave stories carved into the shapes they once held. Their deaths are not erasures. They are transitions. The galaxy, vast and dark, is full of these transitions, quiet transformations held in orbit, wrapped in dust, glowing with the last warmth of old fires. They are everywhere. They are the lullabies of what came before, still playing under the brighter symphony of now. And in their silence they teach us that to be remembered is not to be fixed. It is to be felt. It is to become part of what comes next. The cosmos never forgets. It simply carries everything forward in the arms of infinity. Now let us follow the final steps of this quiet journey, where stars no longer shine but are still held gently in the wide embrace of time. In the arms of infinity, the cosmos does not discard what it once formed. Instead, it keeps its memories close, not always in brightness, but in mass, in motion, in structure, in silence. The stellar dead are not lost. They are suspended, cradled in orbits, anchored in gravity, stitched into the deep fabric of space. Imagine a galaxy in the far future, its spiral arms faded, its star-forming regions gone still. The last of its bright suns have dimmed to white dwarfs. The remnants have cooled, some to black dwarfs, completely dark, invisible to all but gravity. Neutron stars, still spinning, still pulsing, flicker quietly through the void. Black holes roam the galactic core, merging, feeding, emitting gravitational waves that ripple across the silence. There is no light, but there is presence. There is no heat, but there is memory. These remnants drift like slow thoughts through the universe, carrying within them all the mass and meaning they once gave away as light. The matter that once made solar flares now folds in on itself, dense and undisturbed. The plasma that once danced across the surface of suns is now crystallized, still and silent. Nothing is gone, it is all transformed. Even now, as you sit beneath a living sky, you are surrounded by these memories. Some of the stars you see are ghosts, their light arriving long after the stars themselves have faded. Some of the darkness between those stars is filled with unseen masses, shaping the galaxy with quiet hands. You do not see them, but you are held by them. Earth moves through a web of invisible memory. Our orbit, our sun, even our bodies, all exist because of stars that died before the sun was born. And yet the story is not heavy. It is not sad. It is serene, because the universe does not mourn. It honors. It turns every death into foundation, every ending into the shape of what comes next. The silence left by a star is filled not with nothing, but with the space for another star to begin. The elements forged in stellar hearts continue to serve. In distant corners of space, nebulae swirl with dust and gas enriched by the bones of dead stars. These nebulae are not graveyards, they are nurseries. What seems like ash is actually seed. What seems like quiet is actually preparation. And in that swirling, light is born again. Even black holes, the most complete of transformations, participate in this eternal cycle. They gather, merge, distort, and radiate not light but gravity. Their collisions shake the universe itself. The waves they send out are not just ripples. They are announcements. They are memories broadcast in the deep radio of spacetime. Scientists listen. With instruments more sensitive than touch, they record these gravitational whispers, and from them they reconstruct the stories of stars that no longer exist. Two black holes collided, they say. This much mass was lost. This much energy was turned to soundless vibration. From this, we learn not just about collapse, but about how the cosmos remembers in motion. There will come a time deep in the cosmic future when no more stars are born, when all white dwarfs have cooled, when all neutron stars have stopped spinning, when all black holes have merged or evaporated into nothing but background hum. Even then, the memory will remain, not in objects, but in the shape of space itself. The universe, after all, is not static, it expands, and as it does, it stretches its own past across the tapestry of what remains. The structure of spacetime remembers. It curves, not from the stars that still shine, but from the masses long gone dark, and those curves are records, written not in words, but in geometry. You are part of this record. Every atom in your body was born in a star. Every breath you take is made of particles that once floated in stellar winds. Your thoughts, your memories, are echoes of nuclear fire and cosmic pressure. You are not separate from the stars. You are their continuation. You are how the universe remembers itself in a new form. And when you are gone, your matter will go on. It will join the wind, the rain, the soil, the sea. It will return to the stars in time, perhaps as dust, perhaps as gas, perhaps as thought yet unborn, but it will not vanish, because nothing does, not really, not here. The arms of infinity are wide. They are not hurried, they are not harsh. They carry every end as gently as every beginning, and they do not let go. So the next time you look into the night sky and wonder where it all goes, where the light fades, where the stars fall, remember this: it goes nowhere. It becomes, it shifts, it stays. The cosmos remembers all of it. Not in noise, but in stillness. Not in brightness, but in form. Not in pages, but in stars and stones and you. Held always in the arms of infinity. It begins with a slow breath, the kind of breath you don't notice until it's already left you. Not the first breath of a star being born, but the last exhale of the cosmos itself. A hush so wide it folds around everything. After all the stars have burned and all their cinders have cooled, after all the galaxies have unraveled, what remains is not darkness, but a kind of soft remembering. The last light in the universe is not a flash, it is a whisper. There was once a time when stars filled the sky, when fusion lit up the hearts of billions of suns, scattering light like seeds into the dark. There were blue giants and golden dwarfs, red supergiants and bright white suns. There were systems full of planets and nebulae blooming like petals across space. That was the time of light. But stars do not last forever. One by one they spent their fuel. One by one they passed through their luminous arcs, becoming white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. And slowly the cosmos changed its rhythm, from the dance of starlight to the drift of embers. The white dwarfs, those glowing bones of dead suns, cooled over trillions of years. Their light faded, their heat slipped outward, their crystal hearts solidified into stillness. They did not disappear. They became black dwarfs, cold, invisible monuments to fire long forgotten, not dead but complete. The neutron stars slowed, their magnetic fields unwound. Their pulses, once so regular, so sharp, fell silent. No more beams, no more lighthouses cutting the dark, just silence and spin, then stillness. And the black holes, the great centers of collapse, merged, evaporated, and released their final quantum size. Hawking radiation, thin and cold, leaking from horizons until even those vanished into the background hush. Eventually no light remained, no suns, no stars, no flames, and yet something persisted. Matter, gravity, structure. Even as the temperature of the universe approached absolute zero, even as all motion slowed, the bones of what once was still existed. Cold planets drifted in orbit around black dwarfs. Lonely brown dwarfs glowed with the last warmth of collapse. The atoms that had traveled from the cores of stars now rested in rings of ice, grains of dust, fragments of worlds that no longer circled any sun. Time continued, not in the way we know it, not in hours or years, but in the slow erosion of certainty, in the fading of all contrast, in the evening of existence itself. And yet, somewhere in this deep future, a photon moves. Perhaps the last photon, sent from the cooling surface of the final white dwarf before its light dropped below the edge of visibility. It slips through space, passing no planets, touching no eyes, but it moves. A last message from the age of brightness, traveling through the infinite. And the cosmos listens, not because it must, but because everything that has ever lived still hums inside it. The motion of galaxies, the fusion of stars, the breath of planets, the thoughts of minds, the rise of oceans, none of it is lost. It is woven into the shape of time itself. The last light is not only a photon. It is the memory of burning. It is the promise that even in silence, there was once music. It is the softest glow, held forever in the dark. Now let us drift deeper into this silence that the universe has become, not as a place of absence, but as a place where everything that was is still somehow held. Time stretches like soft fabric here, thin and wide, wrapping around the remains of what once shimmered. There are no stars left to count, no galaxies lighting the sky, no suns rising over distant planets, but the space is not empty, it is full of what has been. In this age beyond endings, gravity is one of the few things still speaking. It speaks without words, without heat, without sound. It holds the orbits of darkened planets, curves the paths of frozen moons, guides the dust of long-faded worlds in slow spirals. The black dwarfs, too cold to shine, still possess mass, they still pull, and that pull is memory, the echo of fire wrapped in silence. Everything here moves slowly. Trillions of years pass between moments. A comet, long unbound from its home, circles through space like a thought with no destination. Its ice no longer melts, its trail no longer glows, but it keeps moving. It keeps orbiting a black dwarf whose light is gone, but whose gravity endures. Elsewhere, two black dwarfs draw closer. Their spiral inward is almost invisible, their pace beyond the scale of any living creature's thought. But given enough time, they meet. And when they do, when their masses combine, they may briefly ignite again. Not in a return to starlight, but in a final whisper of brightness, a last thermonuclear breath, a soft white flare that flickers and fades. That moment, brief and dim, may be the last visible light the universe will ever know. And after that, the long quiet resumes. The last echoes of starlight become the background hum of space. The cosmic microwave background, stretched thinner and colder with every passing eon, fades toward invisibility. Temperature falls toward absolute zero. Time keeps ticking, not in beats but in drifts. But this future is not cold in a cruel way. It is peaceful. All that once burned has rested. All that once moved frantically has slowed. The universe has taken a breath so deep it spans everything, and within it lies the shape of every fire that ever lived. The black dwarfs themselves become monuments, not just to stars but to possibility. Their atoms, aligned into diamond lattices, represent the final order born of fusion. What once was chaos, searing and wild, is now frozen into perfection. Each black dwarf is a jewel with no light, a keepsake from a universe that once burned. And even these may not last forever. Theoretical physics suggests they too may eventually decay. Through quantum tunneling, over spans of time greater than the current age of the universe raised to the 40th power, their protons may simply dissolve. If this is true, even the quietest remnants will fade, not in explosions, but in slow unraveling, one particle at a time. It is not death, it is return. Return to emptiness, to stillness, to the pure symmetry from which everything once sprang. Yet the universe is not sad. It does not resist this fading. In every phase of its existence, from the bright chaos of the Big Bang to the crystalline hush of the final age, it has moved forward with grace. Each star, each atom, each flicker of radiation was part of the journey, nothing wasted, nothing rushed. Even now, in the absence of light, there is still form, still memory, still gravity drawing the last shapes together, still space, stretched beyond imagining, holding what remains. Perhaps in this silence something else will arise. Perhaps the decay of black dwarfs will stir new particles into being. Perhaps new physics will emerge from the cold. Or perhaps not. Perhaps this is the final page. But even a final page holds the whole story. The last light in the universe is not just what the eye can see. It is what endures after all vision has gone. It is the shape of time itself, folded and cooled into memory. It is not a spark. It is a stillness filled with meaning. And so the stars that once filled the sky, that once gave birth to galaxies and oceans and breath, are not lost. They are here in the form of things that cannot be seen, in the mass that still holds, in the structure that remains. In the space between all things, the universe holds its breath. And that breath is warm with what was. Now let us follow the breath to its very edge, to the place where light once lived and now only time remains. The universe has grown quiet, not from absence but from completion. It has not collapsed, it has not broken. It has finished its song, and in the stillness that follows, every note can still be felt. The last light is not gone, it is resting. In this deep, cool era of existence, the universe no longer burns, but it does not forget how. All around, the hushed forms of what once flared continue to drift. Black dwarfs, cold diamonds heavier than suns, glide through space like silent memories. Neutron stars, those dense knots of nuclear silence, hold the massive giants in spheres the size of cities. And black holes, timeless wells of fallen light, mark the places where brightness once folded in on itself. Each one is a page in a book no longer being written, but still quietly read by the shape of space. There is no wind here, no radiation, no warmth, but there is structure, there is form. The universe, even emptied of light, is still something. Every atom that remains, every bit of mass, is part of what was once alive with fire. Nothing has been thrown away, nothing has been lost, all has been reshaped. Somewhere gravity still stirs. It pulls two black dwarfs slowly inward over quadrillions of years. They move with such stillness that the modio end seems like memory more than force. And when they finally meet, after longer than time should allow, they may release a last spark. A flicker of energy, a tiny echo of the stars they used to be, not enough to change the darkness, but enough to prove that even in silence something moves. Even after that, things remain. If the black dwarfs dissolve, if even their particles fade, their gravity still shapes the void. The curve of space they created doesn't disappear. It becomes part of the texture. Every place once touched by mass remembers. It bends, it holds, it waits. And perhaps in this waiting something stirs. Some theories whisper of new beginnings, that quantum fluctuations in the dark may spark another burst, that from this emptiness a new expansion could rise, another Big Bang, another fire, another generation of stars. But that is not this story. This story ends here in the cooling dark, where nothing stirs unless you listen closely. Here, where the fabric of the universe has stretched so far that it no longer holds heat. Here, where the stars have gone quiet, but their lessons remain. For even now in this frozen silence, the universe is full of meaning. Every black dwarf is a monument, every neutron star a reliquary, every black hole a seal, not tombs but testaments. They are the witnesses of light. And we for a short time were part of that. We stood beneath suns, we watched their light, we studied their deaths, we listened to their pulses and named their bones, we understood just enough to marvel and to remember. So as this 6-hour lullaby comes to its close, and the final story curls into stillness, let us hold one last truth: the universe forgets nothing. Its memory is not made of photographs or pages, it is made of mass, of gravity, of the silent orbit of things that no longer shine but still remain. Light may vanish, but shape does not. Radiance may end, but what it built stays behind. The last light in the universe is not a star. It is a feeling. The feeling that even in the quietest places, something once burned. And that burn meant something. And even now, in the endless hush, it still does.